It started on a quiet Sunday morning, or at least it was supposed to be quiet. I had just come back from a night shift, parked my old gray Ford truck outside my own driveway, and went inside to grab some sleep. But within 10 minutes, I heard a loud metal clang, like someone dragging chains on the road. When I looked outside, a tow truck was already backing up toward my Ford. A woman in a bright pink blazer stood next to it, arms crossed, chin up like a queen surveying her kingdom. "You can't park here," she shouted, even before I opened my front door. HOA rules. Unauthorized vehicle. It's getting towed. I stared at her, half asleep but already annoyed. "Ma'am, this is my driveway," I said, stepping closer. "I live here. My name's Jake Miller. I own this house." She smirked. "That's not what our records say." Her voice had that sharp tone, fake authority mixed with satisfaction. The tow truck driver didn't even look at me. He hooked the chain and started lifting my front tires. "Stop!" I shouted, moving toward the truck. "You can't tow private property off my own land." Karen, yeah, that's what everyone in the neighborhood called her, took out a paper and waved it in my face. It looked like an HOA notice, printed on cheap white paper, with a big red violation stamped across the top. "See this? You parked an unregistered vehicle," she said proudly. "We already warned you twice." I took the paper, glanced at it, and instantly knew something was off. The logo was wrong, the address on the bottom wasn't even our HOA office, and the signature, it looked like she'd signed it herself. My heart started to pound, not in fear, but in anger. "Who gave you this authority?" I asked. She grinned. "The HOA did. And if you have a problem, take it up with them." The tow truck lifted my Ford's front tires completely off the ground. Karen pulled out her phone, recording me. "You're being aggressive," she said loudly, fake fear dripping from every word. "I'm calling the police." That's when I said quietly, "Go ahead. Call them. I'd like to meet them." She didn't know. I was the police. Retired sheriff, 10 years of service, and I still had friends on duty. But for now, I kept that to myself. Because something about that tow truck felt wrong. No company name. No license plate. And the driver kept his face turned away from me the whole time. Something inside me whispered, this wasn't just another Karen moment. This was a setup. Karen kept filming, pacing in circles like she was starring in her own courtroom drama. The tow truck engine roared louder. My Ford was halfway up when I stepped forward and stood in front of it. "Move, or I'll call the cops again," she snapped. I smiled. "Please do." She froze for a second, maybe not expecting me to stay so calm. Her eyes flicked toward the driver. "Just finish it," she said, waving her hand. The driver still didn't say a word. He kept his cap pulled low, his jacket zipped up even though the sun was burning hot. Then I noticed, his left hand was trembling. Not nervous, injured. His knuckles were bandaged, dark stains underneath. Something about that didn't fit the picture. "Hey, buddy," I said, walking closer. "Which company are you with?" He turned slightly, muttering something under his breath, but his voice cracked. "Just doing my job, man." I glanced at his truck, no company sticker, no DOT number, nothing. Every legal tow company in the state had to display one. Karen, sensing I was catching on, stepped between us. "You're wasting your time. This is an HOA-approved removal," she said, shaking that fake document again. I took out my phone and started recording. "Perfect," I said quietly. "Let's make sure the cops see everything." Her smile vanished. "Stop recording me. You're on my property, remember?" I replied. "I can record whoever I want." She reached out like she might grab the phone, but before she could, the tow driver's radio crackled. A voice came through, "Dispatch to Unit 7, don't move that truck yet. We got a call from county." He immediately shut it off. Karen's face turned pale. Ignore that, she said sharply. They're just confused. Now I knew for sure, this wasn't real. No licensed company would use a fake call sign, and no real HOA could legally authorize a tow without proof. So I leaned in close, just enough for her to hear me. Karen, I said slowly, you might want to stop before this gets worse. She tilted her head, fake smile returning. Worse? For you, maybe. At that exact moment, the tow truck driver shifted into gear, and something fell from his pocket, a small metal badge, scratched but still clear. It wasn't a tow ID. It was from a security agency that went bankrupt 3 years ago. My stomach tightened. Karen didn't just call a fake company. She called criminals. Before I could react, the driver bent quickly, grabbed the fallen badge, and shoved it into his pocket. Karen glanced at me with a shaky smile that didn't reach her eyes. See, she said, voice a little too high. Everything's under control. But it wasn't. The air felt wrong, heavy, like something about to snap. I could hear my dog barking inside, growling like he sensed it too. I pulled out my phone, dialed one number, and said just 4 words, it's me. Send someone. The man on the other end didn't ask who I was. He just said, on it. Karen's confidence cracked. Who did you call? She asked, stepping back. Just the people who'll decide whether you go home today, I said calmly. The driver looked at me, then at Karen. You said this was legal, he muttered. It is, she snapped, panic bleeding into her voice. You think I'd risk everything over one stupid car? But her voice shook. The driver turned off the engine. The chain loosened, my truck dropped slightly back onto the ground. He looked ready to leave, but Karen grabbed his arm. Don't. He's bluffing. Tow it now, and I'll pay double. That's when I noticed another car pulling up. Black SUV. Windows tinted. Karen grinned again, whispering to herself, finally. 2 men stepped out, both wearing uniforms that looked almost official but weren't. Badges on their chests, but no department name. Their belts had radios, no firearms. They looked like rent-a-cops pretending to be something more. Karen folded her arms, pretending to relax. See? I told you, Jake. HOA security. I raised an eyebrow. HOA doesn't have security, Karen. It's a volunteer board, not the FBI. One of the men approached me. Sir, step back. This vehicle is being impounded under local regulation. I smiled faintly. Local regulation? Which one? He opened his mouth, but before he could answer, a real police cruiser turned the corner, lights flashing red and blue. Karen's head snapped toward it, her fake smile melting off like wax. The cruiser stopped right in front of my driveway. Officer Daniels stepped out, an old friend. He looked from me to the tow truck, then to the SUV. What the hell's going on here? He asked. Karen stepped forward quickly. Officer, thank God. He's threatening HOA staff and refusing to move his car. Daniels turned to me, confused. Jake, this your property? I nodded. Always has been. Then I pointed at the SUV. But you might want to ask these guys why they're pretending to be cops. Daniel's face hardened. He reached for his radio. Dispatch, run a quick ID on 2 males in fake uniforms, possibly impersonating law enforcement. Karen's face went white. The driver muttered, I told you this was a bad idea. And that's when one of the fake officers panicked. He jumped back in the SUV, slammed the door, and sped off, tires screeching so loud the whole street echoed. Daniels shouted, Don't move, to the others, while I just stood there watching Karen's perfect world crumb. The SUV tore down the street, vanishing past the corner, leaving behind a trail of burnt rubber and silence. Everyone froze for a few seconds, even Karen didn't move. The color had drained from her face, her confidence stripped away in a single moment. Officer Daniels didn't waste time. He pointed at the tow driver. Hands where I can see them. The man obeyed immediately, palms raised, eyes full of regret. "I didn't know, officer," he said. "She said it was a legit job." "I swear." Karen turned on him instantly. "You liar. You knew what you were doing. You agreed to it." Her voice cracked halfway through, trembling between rage and fear. Daniels looked at me. "Jake, I'm gonna need you to explain this from the start." I nodded and handed him the fake notice. "This is what started it," I said. "She printed a fake HOA violation, hired what she thought was a tow company, but those guys weren't tow drivers. They were pretending to be security. One of them had a fake badge from a closed agency." Daniel studied the paper, his jaw tightening. "This isn't HOA issued. Hell, it's not even the right zip code." Karen stepped forward again, desperate. "No, it's real. You don't understand, he doesn't belong here. He broke community rules. His truck's an eyesore." "Karen," I interrupted softly, "you just hired criminals." She flinched like the words hit her physically. No, they said they were approved contractors. They showed me papers." "Fake ones," Daniel said coldly. "And when we catch the driver who ran, he'll tell us who paid him." For the first time since I'd met her, Karen didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, breathing fast, her hands shaking slightly. Daniels pulled out his radio again, calling for backup to pursue the SUV. I looked toward the corner of the street where it had disappeared, but something about the way it sped off stuck in my mind. The plate number, blacked out. The same kind used in repo scams and property theft rings. That's when it clicked. Karen hadn't just called a shady tow company. She had contacted a ring that stole vehicles, scrubbed their VIN numbers, and sold them out of state. And she had no idea. Daniels looked at her, eyes narrowing. "Karen, where did you find these people?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Online. Facebook group. They said they do HOA enforcement for free." Daniels exhaled hard, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You've got to be kidding me." The tow driver spoke again. "They're dangerous, man. That guy who ran? He's not just some fake cop. He's ex-security. Fired last year for theft." Karen's lips parted slightly. "Wait, what?" And just as she said that, a phone started ringing, not mine, not Daniel's. It was coming from inside the fake tow truck. Daniels walked over, reached in, and pulled out a burner phone buzzing on the dashboard. He hit speaker. A distorted voice came through, calm but cold. "Is it done?" Daniels looked at me, then at Karen, and whispered, "They weren't just stealing your car, Jake. They were here for something else." Karen's knees wobbled. What do you mean something else?" I looked toward my house, and felt my stomach drop. The front door was open. My heart slammed against my chest when I saw that open door. I hadn't left it like that. Daniels noticed too, his hand went straight to his holster. "Stay here," he ordered quietly. He signaled one of the backup officers who had just arrived to cover the yard. Karen, for once, didn't move or speak. She looked frozen, her eyes darting from the house to me, then back again like she was trying to figure out what she'd just unleashed. I walked up beside Daniels anyway. "If someone's in there, they're after something specific," I said. He nodded once, eyes scanning the shadows. "You armed?" "Not right now," I said, my voice low, "but there's a safe in the living room. That's what they might be after." We stepped inside. The air felt heavy, silent except for a faint ticking from the wall clock. Everything looked untouched until I saw the footprints on the tile. Muddy. Fresh. Then the sound came, a soft metallic click from the back room. Daniels motioned for silence. We moved slowly down the hallway. My safe was half hidden behind an old bookshelf, but it was pulled halfway out. Someone had tried to open it. I stepped forward, and the man I'd seen driving the SUV turned around. His fake uniform jacket was gone, he was in a black t-shirt now, a pistol hanging loosely in one hand. He smiled when he saw me. "Didn't think you'd come back this quick, Sheriff." My blood ran cold. He knew exactly who I was. Daniels raised his weapon. "Drop it." The man hesitated. "Relax. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want what's inside that safe. Then I'm gone." Karen's voice suddenly echoed from the doorway behind us, shaky and terrified. "You said no one would get hurt. You said it was just a tow." He turned his head slightly, laughing. "You really thought we were towing cars? Lady, you handed me the address of a cop who put 2 of my guys away last year. You basically gave me a second chance." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Now it made sense. Last year, when I was still on the force, I'd busted a security crew for stealing vehicles and scamming homeowners. This guy, Mason, was their leader. He must have tracked me down after getting out. Daniels tightened his grip. "It's over, Mason. Backup's outside." But Mason just grinned wider. "You think I came alone?" Outside, the sound of tires screeched again, another vehicle pulling up fast. Through the window, I saw 2 silhouettes step out, both armed. Karen gasped, stumbling backward. "Oh my God, this wasn't supposed to happen." I looked at her, voice low but firm. "You brought them here. Now you'd better help us stop them." She shook her head frantically, tears starting to fall. "I didn't know, I swear." Daniels moved toward the front to intercept the new arrivals while I kept my eyes on Mason. The tension in the room was like a live wire. Mason looked from me to the safe, then back again. "You've got 2 choices, Sheriff. Open it, or I start shooting." I took one slow step closer, keeping my hands visible. "You want what's inside? Fine. But I think you forgot something." He frowned. "What's that?" I nodded toward the corner, at the small blinking red light near the ceiling. "The security camera I'd installed 2 weeks ago." Mason's grin faltered for the first time. Outside, sirens grew louder. And that's when everything erupted at once. The moment the sirens hit the air, Mason panicked. He spun toward the window, trying to see how close the cruisers were. Daniels yelled, "Drop it now," but Mason fired instead, one deafening shot that shattered the living room lamp. I dove behind the couch, glass raining down. Daniels fired once in return, hitting the doorframe just inches from Mason's shoulder. Karen screamed, covering her ears, frozen by fear. Mason bolted toward the back door, but I moved fast, cutting him off. We collided hard, his pistol clattering across the floor. He swung a punch, I caught his arm, twisted, felt his elbow pop. He held, but before I could cuff him, one of his men kicked the front door open. "Move," the new guy shouted, raising a shotgun. Daniels ducked behind the kitchen counter. Karen was still standing in the middle of the room, shaking. The man aimed straight at her, thinking she was on my side. "Get down," I yelled. But something changed in her face, fear turning to anger. Maybe guilt, maybe adrenaline, I'll never know. She grabbed the heavy ceramic vase from the table and smashed it into the man's arm right before he could shoot. The shotgun went off, blasting a hole through my wall instead of my chest. Daniels popped up, fired once, and the man went down. For a second, everything stopped, just ringing in my ears and the smell of gunpowder. Mason was on the floor, bleeding from a cut on his temple, glaring at Karen like he couldn't believe what she'd done. She dropped the vase, trembling. "I didn't mean, I cuffed Mason quickly and looked at her. "You just saved my life." She stared at me, eyes wide and wet. "I didn't know they were killers. I just wanted you gone. I thought I was protecting the neighborhood." Outside, the Real police rushed in. Daniels went to meet them, calling out that the suspects were secured. I stood there, still breathing hard, looking at the woman who had caused all this and yet, just maybe, had started to understand what she'd become. The officers dragged Mason and his man out to the yard. As they passed Karen, he muttered, "You think this is over? You have no idea what's in that safe." Karen's head snapped toward me. "What is in there?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Because deep down, I knew Mason was right. The fight wasn't over. When the police took Mason away, I finally opened the safe. Karen stood beside me, arms crossed, trying to hold herself together. Her face was pale, like she'd seen enough for 10 lifetimes. The code clicked, and the door swung open, but what was inside wasn't money, gold, or documents. It was a stack of black folders, each labeled with HOA property numbers, signatures, and hidden transactions. At the top was a USB drive marked evidence. I plugged it into my laptop. The file showed video footage from hidden cameras. Mason and Karen's so-called HOA team had been illegally recording homeowners, forging eviction notices, and collecting fake violation fees that went straight to Mason's offshore account. Karen gasped. He made me send those letters. I didn't know they were fake." I looked at her sharply. "You didn't ask either." She looked down. "I thought it was just HOA business. Rules, you know?" I sighed. "Rules don't matter when people like him make them up." I called Daniels over. "This is bigger than we thought. He's been extorting half the neighborhood." Daniels whistled. "Looks like you just cracked open a criminal ring." Karen sat down, shaking her head. "I was part of it. I'll lose everything." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said quietly, "Maybe it's time you give something back." The next day, the footage went public. News vans lined the street. Every homeowner who'd been threatened or fined unfairly finally knew the truth. Karen stepped forward on camera, face uncovered, and admitted her role. She testified against Mason, gave all the files to the authorities, and handed me a signed document, the HOA's dissolution papers. The crowd outside clapped when she walked away. For the first time, she didn't look like a Karen. She just looked human, broken, but trying. As I stood by my truck, Daniels clapped my shoulder. "Guess justice came home today." I smiled. "Yeah, but it's not about revenge. It's about reclaiming what's yours." And when I looked at the sun rising over my driveway, I whispered, "I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't park in my own yard." That line went viral. People all over the country shared it, because it wasn't just about me. It was about every homeowner, every veteran, every person who'd ever been pushed around by fake authority. But as I drove off, I couldn't shake one thought. That USB drive had one more folder I hadn't opened. It was labeled HOA Central, Level 2 Operations. And I knew right then, this was just the beginning.